For 10,000 years, the Vorthic Dominion had ruled the stars. Their fleets had burned worlds, their soldiers had crushed rebellions, and their empire had spread like a shadow across the galaxy to them. Earth was nothing special, just another resource-rich planet on the edge of known space. A soft target, as the Vorthic War Council called it. Primitive, divided, easy prey. They were wrong. But they didn't know that yet. The first attack came without warning. It was 3:14 UTC, when Earth's orbital defense network lit up with incoming alerts. 20 Vorthic warships slipped out of faster-than-light transit right above the moon. They didn't send demands. They didn't speak. They fired. The Lunar Research Station was the first to go, vaporized in a single beam of green-white light. Debris scattered into space like sparks from a dying fire. Minutes later, the orbital stations Kepler Ring and Atlas Prime followed. One moment, they were shining arcs against the darkness. The next, they were gone, replaced by clouds of molten metal drifting into nothing. In less than an hour, humanity's first line of defense was shattered. On Earth, chaos erupted. Major cities went into blackout mode. Air raid sirens wailed across continents that hadn't heard them in a century. But in the shadows of the crisis, something else was happening, something unprecedented. Every leader, every head of state, every military commander was called into an emergency virtual session. For the first time in history, every government on Earth spoke with one voice. The United Earth Council was born that night, not with ceremony, but with urgency. Reports came in from the Solar Defense Command. The Vorthic fleet had begun moving toward Mars, wiping out mining stations and cargo convoys in its path. General Ortiz, head of Earth's strategic defense, summed it up in a single grim sentence. We are outnumbered, outgunned, and they are not here to negotiate. The first human counterattack was swift and disastrous. A fleet of 30 human warships, led by the battleship Uns Resolute, intercepted the Vorthic above Phobos. The battle lasted 7 minutes. The Vorthic weapons tore through human shields like paper. Their armor shrugged off railgun rounds that could crack asteroids. Half the human fleet was destroyed before the order to retreat was even given. The survivors limped back toward Earth, scarred and silent. Inside the United Earth Council's war room, the air was heavy with dread. Maps of the solar system were lit in red, showing the Vorthic's path toward Earth. They would arrive in days. That was when Admiral Ren Nakamura, head of Earth's Special Operations Command, stood up. I have an alternative, he said. Quietly, the room fell silent. He tapped a command into his datapad, and a holographic map shifted. Far beyond Pluto's orbit, a cluster of signals pulsed faintly. Unmarked. Classified. These ships, Nakamura continued, do not exist in any official registry. They were built in deep space, far from prying eyes, equipped with weapons no alien has ever seen. A murmur ran through the council. Why haven't we used them? President Yamani of the African Union demanded. Because they were never meant for defense, Nakamura said. They were meant for vengeance. The council debated for less than 2 minutes. There was no time for hesitation. The vote was unanimous. Nakamura sent the order. The classified fleet, Project Firestorm, was activated. Out past the orbit of Neptune, hidden in the shadow of a small ice moon, 16 black warships came to life. They were nothing like Earth's standard navy. Each ship was sleek, angular, built for speed and destruction. Their engines pulsed with a deep crimson glow. They didn't transmit identification codes. They didn't ask for orders. They had one mission. On the bridge of the UHS Revenant, Captain Mara Vance received her. Instructions. The voice of Admiral Nakamura came through her comb, calm but heavy. You are to leave the solar system immediately. You will not return until the mission is complete. She didn't ask what that mission was. She already knew. Back on Earth, the war room watched as the 16 ships disappeared from the solar system's long-range scans. No one but Nakamura knew exactly where they were going. General Ortiz frowned at the disappearing blips. Do you think they can stop the Vorthik? Nakamura didn't look away from the hologram. They won't just stop them, he said. They'll make them wish they'd never found us. As Earth's defenses braced for the next wave, somewhere in the cold void between stars, Project Firestorm set its course toward a destination no human fleet had ever dared to approach. Because to win this war, they wouldn't just have to fight the Vorthik. They'd have to take the fire to the very heart of the Dominion Gothook ending. And far across the galaxy, deep within the Vorthik Imperial Throne Hall, the Emperor received a single cryptic transmission from an unknown human source. You wanted a war. Now you'll have one. The solar system was on fire. Mars was burning. The asteroid mining belts had gone silent. And every hour, more human colonies sent distress signals, most ending in static. But far from the chaos, 16 black. Warships moved like shadows through deep space. They were not headed toward Earth. They were headed away from Project. Firestorm had been Earth's most closely guarded secret. Even most high-ranking military officers didn't know it existed. It began decades earlier, when humanity first learned it was not alone in the galaxy. The first contact had been peaceful. The second had not. After watching other worlds fall to alien powers, certain human leaders agreed. If the day came when Earth was threatened, humanity would need weapons the galaxy had never seen. And so, in the hidden shipyards of the Black Forge, they built them. The Black Forge was not a planet. It was an ancient asteroid hollowed out, orbiting a dead star, invisible to all but the most precise scanners. Here, human engineers worked in silence, cut off from the rest of civilization. No one entered without clearance. No one left without forgetting everything they had seen. Inside its tunnels, they forged warships with technology taken from scavenged alien wrecks, improved with human ingenuity, and powered by reactors that broke every interstellar treaty. Captain Mara Vance stood at the UHS Revenant's command console, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. Her crew worked in silence, not out of fear, but out of focus. They knew what was at stake. They knew that while Earth fought to survive, they were the knife aimed at the enemy's heart. Her second officer, Lieutenant Harris, broke the silence. Ma'am, we're approaching the Black Forge in 3 minutes. Vance gave a sharp nod. Signal the Forge, Code Omega. When the Firestorm fleet arrived, the massive asteroid came alive. Hidden hangar doors, the size of cities, slid open. Docking lights flared to guide them in. As each ship entered the Forge, the black void was replaced by the glare of construction bays, filled with impossible machines. There, resting in the docks, were the weapons that would change the war. The Solar Lance's massive cannon arrays capable of slicing a battleship in half with one shot. The graviton mines, invisible traps that could tear enemy ships apart from the inside by twisting their own gravity fields. And then the crown jewel, the Helios drives. These weren't just engines. They could turn the entire ship into a weapon, unleashing bursts of pure starfire drawn from artificial suns contained inside the reactor cores. Even among her crew, no one spoke as the engineers began loading these weapons onto the Firestorm. Ships. The Forge's chief engineer, an old man with cybernetic eyes, met Captain Vance on the dock. You'll only get one shot with the drives, he said gravely. After that, your ships won't survive the backlash. Vance didn't flinch. One shot will be enough. As the loading continued, encrypted transmissions buzzed through the Forge. Reports of Vorthik movements were coming in from every corner of the galaxy. The Dominion's fleets were spreading thin, chasing down human resistance cells. The Emperor believed Earth's defeat was inevitable. He had no idea what was coming, but not everyone in the forge believed victory was certain. Lieutenant Harris approached Vance as they inspected the final loadout. "Ma'am, even with these weapons, we're 16 ships against thousands." Vance's eyes didn't leave the glowing lines of the solar lance she was checking. "Then we'll make every shot count. We're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to make them bleed until they can't fight at all." The plan was dangerous. The Firestorm fleet would not return to defend Earth. Instead, they would strike deep inside Vorthik space, targeting shipyards, supply chains, and command centers. If they could cut the head off the serpent, the fleets attacking Earth would collapse. But to reach the Dominion's core worlds, they would have to pass through the Veil Rift, a deadly region of space where navigation failed and ships vanished without a trace. 3 days after arriving at the forge, the Firestorm fleet departed, fully armed and loaded with supplies for a journey no human fleet had ever attempted. The Veil Rift loomed ahead, a swirling expanse of black mist and flashing lights stretching across half a sector. Inside, sensors would be blind. Communication would be impossible. As they approached, Vance gave the order. "All ships, silent running, no comms, no lights. We move as shadows." For 22 hours, the Firestorm fleet slipped through the rift. Strange whispers echoed through the comm systems, even when powered down. Crew reported seeing shapes moving outside the hull, too large to be ships, too strange to be alive. But they didn't stop. Not even when one of the ships, the UHS Blackthorn, vanished from formation without a trace. Finally, the fleet emerged on the other S. The Firestorm fleet had crossed the Veil Rift, but their arrival was no secret. The Vorthik's God fleet was waiting. These were not ordinary warships. Each one was a fortress of steel and energy, armed with weapons capable of erasing continents. They had crushed rebellions on 20 worlds and returned without a single loss. And now they were here, blocking the path to the Dominion's largest shipyard. Captain Mara Vance studied the tactical display. 16 human ships against 30. Vorthik dreadnoughts, hundreds of cruisers, and fighter swarms. It was the kind of battle that history books would call hopeless. Her voice was calm. "They expect us to turn back." She looked at her crew. "We won't." The first salvo came from the Vorthik. Columns of green plasma streaked across space, tearing through the void toward the Firestorm fleet. Evasive. Vance barked. UHS Revenant rolled hard to port as the blasts passed close enough to make the hull vibrate. A lesser ship would have been torn apart instantly. Vance's eyes narrowed. Target their lead dreadnought. Fire Solar Lance. The ship's spine glowed white-hot as the Solar Lance charged. In a blinding flash, a beam of pure light tore across space, hitting the Vorthik flagship dead center. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the dreadnought split in half, molten debris spilling into the void. The Vorthik formation wavered. This was not the fight they had expected. Across the Firestorm fleet, more solar lances ignited. Beams slashed through enemy lines, cutting apart ships like paper. But the God fleet did not retreat. They surged forward, unleashing storms of plasma, missiles, and energy blasts. The UHS Nightfall took a direct hit, its shields collapsing in. Seconds. Fire erupted along its hull, but it stayed in the fight, firing its Helios drive at point-blank range. The blast turned 3 Vorthik cruisers into vapor. The Nightfall's reactor went critical moments later. The ship exploded in a burst of starfire, taking 2 enemy dreadnoughts with it. Vance watched the destruction in silence. Every loss was a knife in her chest, but there was no time to mourn. Push forward. Get us inside their formation. The Firestorm ships dove straight into the heart of the God fleet. At this range, the enemy's long-range weapons were less effective, but the fighting became brutal and close. In the chaos, the UHS Revenant closed on a massive carrier. Boarding tubes extended, and squads of armored marines stormed into the enemy vessel. Gunfire echoed through steel corridors as humans and Vorthik clashed in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The humans fought like demons, every strike fueled by the memory of Earth under attack. Minutes later, the Revenant's Marines planted demolition charges in the carrier's reactor core. They barely made it back before the entire vessel went up in a white-hot explosion. Still, the battle was far from won. Half the Firestorm fleet was gone. The enemy still had more ships than they could count. Vance's officer shouted over the alarms. "Ma'am, they're calling for reinforcements from the shipyard." Vance knew they had minutes before even more enemy warships arrived. If they didn't destroy the shipyard now, the mission was over. She made the call. All ships, Firestorm protocol. Every remaining vessel powered up their Helios drives. The reactors roared, drawing in impossible amounts of energy. The ships themselves began to glow like miniature suns. They only had one shot, the Firestorm. Fleet broke through the last line of enemy ships, diving straight toward the ring-shaped shipyard. The Vorthik fired everything they had, trying to stop them. Several Firestorm ships were torn apart mid-charge, but the rest held course. "Now!" Vance shouted. The surviving ships unleashed their Helios drives at the same moment. The effect was indescribable. The ring-whirled shipyard was swallowed by a wall of starfire. Its superstructure melted and broke apart, massive sections spinning off into the void. Entire factories, command centers, and construction bays were vaporized in seconds. The shockwave hurled ships in every direction, friend and foe alike. When the light faded, the shipyard was gone. The Firestorm fleet was reduced to only 5 ships. The God fleet was in ruins, but before anyone could speak, a new signal appeared on the scanners. Hook ending. It wasn't reinforcements from the shipyard. It was something far bigger. An entire second God fleet had just arrived from hyperspace, and this time they weren't alone. Something even larger than the dreadnoughts moved in the shadows behind them. The wreckage of the first God fleet still drifted in burning pieces when the second arrived, but this time they didn't come alone. From the darkness behind their formation, something emerged. At first, the human scanners couldn't process the size. It was not a ship. It was not a station. It was a moving moon, armored in black alloy, bristling with weapons the size of skyscrapers. Captain Mara Vance stood frozen at the bridge's viewport. Her voice came out as a whisper. "That's not possible." Her tactical officer swallowed hard. "Mom, whatever that is, it's alive." The readings showed an enormous life signature inside the moon-like structure, a biomechanical organism fused with a war platform. The Vorthik called it Drakor, a living god of war, built from the remains of a dead star and a creature older than recorded history. The second god fleet spread out, surrounding Drakor like worshippers around a shrine. And then it spoke. Not overcomes, directly into the minds of every human on the battlefield. "You are prey. You have run far enough." Several crew members staggered back, clutching their heads. Even Vance felt the pressure in her skull, like a claw digging into her thoughts. The Vorthik weren't just here to finish the humans. They wanted to make an example. Drakor's central cannon began charging, pulling in light from nearby stars until it burned like a second sun. One shot from that weapon could destroy an entire planet. Vance gave her orders quickly. "All ships, scatter pattern. Keep moving, keep firing. Target their escorts first." The 5 remaining Firestorm ships split apart, weaving through incoming fire. Solar lances cut through Vorthic cruisers, and Helios torpedoes tore chunks from dreadnought armor. But Drakor didn't even flinch. Its living armor absorbed every hit, regenerating within seconds. And then it fired. The beam was silent at first, just a straight line of blinding light. When it struck, it erased the UHS Vanguard instantly, leaving nothing but a fading afterimage dot. The shockwave hurled the rest of the Firestorm fleet away like toys. 2 more ships were heavily damaged. They could not win a direct fight. On the Revenant's bridge, Vance's second officer shouted over the alarms. "Captain, I found something. There's a gap in its armor near the forward core. It's organic." Vance's eyes narrowed. If it's alive, it can bleed. She knew what had to be done, but it would mean flying dangerously close. To Drakor's main cannon, "Prepare the Starbreaker missile," she ordered. The Starbreaker was a prototype, a warhead designed to collapse matter into a miniature black hole. It had never been tested in combat. If they hit the organic gap, it might kill Drakor. If they missed, the missile could tear the Revenant apart, along with half the fleet. The God fleet closed in, tightening the noose. Vorthic fighters swarmed the Revenant like angry hornets. Point defense turrets blazed, cutting them down, but there were always more. The ship's hull groaned under constant fire. The engineering crew reported hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Still, Vance kept the course. They broke through the fighter screen, Drakor's massive body filling the entire forward view. The organic gap pulsed with light, like a beating heart. "Target locked," the weapons officer confirmed. "Missile armed." Drakor seemed to sense what they were about to do. Its voice thundered inside their skulls again. "Child, you dare challenge a god?" The main cannon began charging, this time aimed directly at the Revenant. Vance had seconds to decide. If she fired too soon, the missile might miss. If she waited too long, they'd be gone before they had the chance. Hook ending. "Fire," Vance said. The Starbreaker shot forward, streaking toward Drakor Eshart, just as the living god unleashed its planet-killer beam. The 2 weapons met in a blinding explosion that swallowed the battlefield in light. When the glare faded, no one could see what remained of Drakor or the Revenant. The glare slowly faded. For a moment, there was only silence in the comm channels. No voices, no static, no movement. Then the battlefield came into focus. Where Drakor had been, there was now only a burning scar in space, a wound of twisting gravity and debris, slowly spiraling into nothingness. The God fleet was in chaos. Several of their dreadnoughts were adrift, engines dead. Fighters scattered in every direction like frightened birds. But the Revenant was gone. On the bridge of the UHS Ironlight, Commander Howell stood frozen, watching the swirling void where the missile had struck. He swallowed hard. They did it. His sensor officer's voice shook. "Sir, I'm detecting..." "No, I was detecting Drakor. It's completely gone. Captain Vance, her ship. I can't find any signal." Halle closed his eyes. The Revenant had bought them victory, but at a cost no one had wanted to pay. The human fleet rallied quickly. Orders went out. Cripple everything that's still moving. Take prisoners. And make sure the galaxy sees it. Across the system, human ships hunted down the scattered Vorthic survivors. Every kill was broadcast live across open channels, deliberately letting alien worlds witness the destruction. The message was simple. If you come for Earth, you burn. In the Vorthic capital, panic spread faster than orders. The Emperor's War. Council, once confident in their godships, now argued in frantic whispers. Losing the God fleet was unthinkable. Losing Drakor was impossible, but the impossible had just happened. Yet even in victory, something darker stirred in humanity. A galaxy had always seen them as a young, stubborn race, but now they had proven they could kill the unkillable. And worse, they had the weapons to do it again. The prototype Starbreaker had worked. The engineers back on Luna Base already had plans for 3 more. That night, across dozens of alien worlds, news channels replayed the same footage. A human warship diving into the heart of Drakor. A blinding light consuming the sky. A god of war erased in seconds. Children watched and asked their parents, "Who are the humans?" The parents didn't answer. Back in the war zone, salvage crews moved among the wreckage. They found something strange, a fragment of Drakor's living armor still pulsing faintly. It was quickly sealed in a containment pod and sent to a secure research station. No one noticed the faint signal it began to emit. No one knew it was calling to something far away. But in the short term, the war was shifting. Vorthic governors began refusing orders to fight, fearing their worlds would be the next to burn. Small rebellions broke out in the Dominion's outer colonies. Some alien factions even sent secret offers to ally with humanity. Hook ending. On the bridge of the Iron Light, Commander Hall received a priority transmission. It was from an encrypted source, one that shouldn't even exist. A distorted voice came through. "You think you've won." But Drakor was not the last. It was the smallest. Before Hale could respond, the signal cut out, replaced by a set of coordinates on the galactic rim. And in the cold darkness of deep space, something vast and ancient began to wake. Coordinates the mysterious signal had sent were far beyond any mapped territory. Out there, the stars thinned, the light dimmed, and the void seemed heavier. It was a place where even ancient empires avoided traveling. Commander Hull stared at the star map, the numbers glowing cold on the screen. If the message was true, if Drakor had been the smallest, then whatever lay in those coordinates would be beyond anything humanity had ever faced. Back on Earth, the United Defense Council met in a sealed chamber beneath the old UN building. Holoscreens filled the room with images of the Vorthek retreat, the wreckage of the God fleet, and the unknown organic fragment that had been recovered. Dr. Imani, the lead xenobiologist, spoke first. "We've analyzed the signal from the fragment. It's a summoning pulse, a distress call to its kind." The council fell silent. General Armitage leaned forward. "How many kind are we talking about?" Imani hesitated. "We don't know. But based on the energy readings, whatever is coming is planetary in scale." 3 weeks later, humanity's scouts reached the coordinates. They didn't find a planet. They found a shell, a colossal structure, blacker than space itself, its surface moving like slow waves. From certain angles, it looked like a world. From others, a living thing curled in sleep. The lead scout transmitted one image before the feed went to static. An eye the size of a continent opening. Panic rippled across human space. The Vorthik, instead of pressing their advantage, sent a message of warning. "We fought the gods for 1,000 years before they ruled us. You have woken their father." This new entity had a name in alien legends. Karshhol, the World Eater. It was said to travel between galaxies, consuming star systems whole, leaving nothing but frozen husks. And now, it was coming. The Firestorm project, humanity's secret weapon program, shifted into overdrive. The surviving engineers of the Revenant's crew worked alongside alien defectors to create the largest weapon ever built, the Starforge cannon, a ship-sized accelerator capable of firing a Starbreaker, warhead with enough force to pierce a planet. But there was a problem. It could only fire once before tearing itself apart. Karshhol entered human space on the edge of the Andra system. Planets trembled in its gravitational pull. Stars dimmed as its vast body blocked their light. Its voice was not like Drakor's. It was deeper, older, a slow rumble that felt like mountains collapsing. You killed my child. You will feed me in return. The combined fleet of humanity, Vorthic rebels, and smaller alien powers gathered for the first time in recorded history. Thousands of ships, from tiny fighters to mile-long dreadnoughts, formed a wall of firepower. Battle began with a storm of plasma, railgun rounds, and fusion torpedoes. Kar's hull ignored them. Its armor was thicker than mountains, its regeneration faster than fire could burn. Whole battle groups vanished into the vast tentacles that lashed out from its surface, crushing ships like insects. On the bridge of the USS Ironlight, Hale gave the order. All ships, clear a path for the Starforge. The fleet shifted, sacrificing hundreds of vessels to keep the monster's attention while the Starforge charged its core. The warhead inside, Starbreaker Omega, was armed, glowing brighter than the surrounding stars. Kar's hull sensed the threat. It turned its vast body toward the Starforge, its central maw opening, revealing a swirling black void, a weapon that could consume an entire fleet in one pull. The Starforge's captain, a grim-faced veteran named Ortega, gave a single nod to his crew. Fire. The Omega warhead launched, vanishing into the darkness. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the center of Karshul's body erupted in a beam of collapsing light, a wound so massive it could be seen from planets away. The World Eater's roar shook every mind in the system. Its tentacles writhed, tearing apart moons in its death throes. And then, silence. The battlefield was a graveyard. Half the Allied fleet was gone. The Starforge was split in two, drifting silently. But Kar's hull was no more dot for the second. Time in months, humanity had killed the unkillable. But in the councils of alien empires, one truth settled like ice in their hearts. If humans could destroy gods, what could they not destroy? Final hook ending. Deep in the void, beyond the reach of any scanner, another colossal shape shifted in the dark. Eyes, thousands of them, opened one by one, and a whisper spread through the cold. They have finally awakened us all.